Today we're going to begin by talking about these three guys, and then we're going to talk a bit about Aristotle's philosophy and how they can help us solve some of the problems of composites. So the first one is Socrates, all right? And you guys heard of Socrates the other day when we talked about Socratic questioning, the Socratic method, when we talked about definitions. Can you guys tell us anything about Socrates?
He was Greek.
He's Greek, yep. These guys told me that, I reckon. Yep.
He went around, I think it was Athens, just questioning people.
Very good. Athens and other parts of ancient Greece, but that's right. He would question people and he would help them realise their ignorance. That's right, yep. Vinny?
Is he the one that was eventually, he had to choose between being, was it executed or poisoned? Yeah, that's right. Or what was the other option?
Sort of renouncing his opinion.
That's right. Had to publicly reject. Yeah.
That's right. So he was known as a gnat, and a gnat is like a fly that comes around and stings you. Who's been stung by a march fly before? Who's been stung by a march fly? They're a massive fly. You get them in the season of March, and they land on you. You don't really feel them land on you because they have like a numbing thing when they land on you, and they sting like buggery. All right, but they stay there, so you can hit them and kill them. But they're just annoying as. So Socrates was described as a gnat because he would go around, he would really annoy people just because he was asking questions, and they didn't know the answer to them. Harry, come on in. A little bit late. Bus. Oh, come up here with the year 11s here. So that's what Socrates is described as. And in the end, he was asked, he was told off for corrupting the youth, corrupting the young people. And leading them astray. And he had to choose between death, all right, via hemlock, which was a poisonous drink, or to renounce the opinions and things that he had said. And he chose to die. He said, truth is truth. I'm not going to abandon truth. And so that's how he died. Now, one of his students was Plato, okay? His student was Plato. You might remember Plato's cave. And so these guys all lived about 2,500 years ago, right? Now, Socrates actually never wrote anything down. Plato wrote everything, and everything we have that Socrates said is written by Plato. So who knows how much of it Socrates actually said? Who knows how much of it Plato was using his name to advance his own ideas? And Plato gives us the allegory of the cave, right? Okay, that's what we spoke about in our very first lesson. We said, imagine you're born in a cave, you've never been outside before, and then one day you escape. Okay, we're saying you're living in the cave now. Philosophy aimed to get outside the cave. But Plato, that's one way of looking at it. Plato has another layer to that. There's a more complex way of understanding that, which we'll bring up in a moment with Plato's cave. And then Plato's student is Aristotle. So you can see here a series of students. We've got Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. And Aristotle's very famous for one reason. He developed the whole metaphysics, and he's widely regarded as one of the best philosophers since Socrates, of course. But also he tutored Alexander the Great. Okay, who's heard of Alexander the Great before? Nikolai, what can you tell me about him?
He was a battle leader in a lot of wars.
That's right.
In a lot of countries.
Excellent. He conquered the known world at the time. And he's from a part of Greece. Does anyone know what part of Greece Alexander was from?
I can't pronounce probably, but Macedon?
Yeah, Macedonia. Yeah, very good. Macedonia. Probably is pronounced Macedon. You look at it on the map. Yeah, Macedonia. So Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. And what we're going to look at today is a bit of a disagreement these guys had. These two had a disagreement about philosophy. So the first thing we're going to look at is Plato's understanding of the cave. All right, it's called Plato's allegory of the cave, and it's conveyed through Socrates in one of the dialogues. Now, so this is taking place in a cave, this picture here. And what Plato says is we are in the cave, but not only are we in the cave, but we're chained up in the cave. And we're pinned against a wall. And we are watching not real things take place, real events, but shadows on the wall. Okay, so we don't see real birds. We see shadows of birds. We don't see real people, real tables, real trees. We see shadows of them. All right? And so you can think of the prisoner to break free and turn around and realize they're in the cave and all they're seeing is a shadow, an indication of it, not the true reality. So this is, for Plato, the world of shadows, the realm of shadows. And the true world, the genuine world, is the realm of forms. And these forms indicate to us, the shadows indicate the forms to us. So that's Plato's understanding of the cave. Now we're going to look at 3 of Aristotle's works. The first 2 are very easy to understand. Act and potency. Act and potency. All right? We can also use the word actuality, and we can also use the word potentiality. They all mean the same thing. So, here I've got a coffee cup. It's blue, it's shiny, it's empty. This is the way it is. This is its act, the way it actually is. Its actuality is that it's blue, it's shiny, it's together, and it's empty. Okay? And then its potentiality is all of the ways that it could possibly be. It could be smashed into a million pieces if you throw it on the ground. It could be dipped in a cup of red paint and it could come out red. All right? It could be filled up with petrol and lit on fire. Okay? There are lots of ways it could be, but notice that all of its potentialities, all of the ways it can be, are grounded in the way it is, are grounded in its act. It can't, for instance, lay an egg. Okay? It can't, for instance, grow wings and fly off. All right? Because that's not grounded in the way that it is. Similarly, with the soccer ball, who would like to tell me, describe me, what's its actuality? What is the way that it is?
It's a circular ball with black and white pattern.
Perfect, okay? And someone give me a potentiality. What's one way that it could be?
Deflated.
It could be flat. Yep, minute.
I was going to say
The same thing, could be flat. You could turn it inside out. All right, that'd be hard, but you could cut a hole in it and make it in half. Yep.
Could take all the stitches out and have each hexagon laid out.
Excellent. You could separate the parts. Very good. And notice how all of those ideas are reflective of the way it is. So what something can be is grounded in the way that it is, the way its actuality is. So distinction between act and potency, Aristotle developed that. So we're going to see if we can use that idea to solve some of the problems of composites. All right. So here's an interesting reflection of act and potency and parts. All right. Is water is H2O, right? That's a fairly basic chemical analysis. I think you learned that maybe in year 8. So hydrogen and oxygen, they're the atoms, and when they combine to form a water molecule. All right, so H2O is a water molecule. So atoms are the parts, molecule is the thing when they're together. So 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. Now H2O is composed of hydrogen, okay? Hydrogen by itself is H2, hydrogen gas. All right, they used to use it in Zeppelins and things. And O2 is oxygen gas. So what do we breathe in? Oxygen. That's true. The atmosphere does have oxygen in it, but the most dominant element in the atmosphere? Nitrogen, yeah. The atmosphere, every breath you take, you breathe in 80% nitrogen. Most of what you breathe is nitrogen. That's the reason the sky is blue. It's because of the nitrogen. And we only take the oxygen part out of it. Oxygen's about 20%, and there's like 1% residual other stuff in the atmosphere. Now, when we just consider hydrogen at room temperature, hydrogen gas burns, all right? Whereas oxygen as a substance, I don't know why I've written that, oxygen gas, should just say oxygen as a substance boils. It becomes a gas at minus 180 degrees Celsius, all right? But look at water. It's a composite of those two things, and it's liquid at room temperature, right? It boils at 100 degrees Celsius. So the parts, these parts, have different properties than the whole. Now we can separate water. You can take water and you can separate it into hydrogen and oxygen. You can separate it into those two parts via a process called electrolysis. And isn't that fascinating that these parts have different properties than the whole? The parts have different properties than the whole. So that's going to be one reflection we maintain. Water, okay, has the potential to be separated into hydrogen and oxygen, okay? That's grounded in the way it is. But the way it is at the moment, okay, as water, it has certain properties it doesn't have when it is separated. Okay, so next, let's look at this. How could you make 50 cookies that are identical? 50 that are the exact same. All right, let's get some ideas. Vinny's got his hand up first.
Can't, not really.
You can't, okay?
You can make them look identical. but
Cool, let's
they
do
won't.
that. Let's make them look identical.
Okay, well, you can use a conveyor belt with a robot that gets the exact amount of each ingredient and the exact placement of the chopped chips and that kind of thing.
Cool, okay, so we want the exact same amount of everything and the chopped chips in the same location. That's good so far? Yep, Mena?
And you time the temperature that is in the oven.
Excellent, yep. So put them in the oven for the same amount of time. Eric?
Could be in some sort of like cookie cutter, so it won't expand further out and it won't be a certain height.
Very good, I like that one. So Nikolai, let's close our laptop. So, Nikolai, do you have any other ideas how we might get the cookies to be the exact same?
Cooking in the same way.
Cooking them all the same way?
One individual batch.
So, no doubt you've done this, right? Okay, so let's say you're following a recipe, you put all the stuff in, you mix it up. Some cookies have more chocolate chips than others, don't they? You know, that's just going to be inevitable if you mix it. So Vinny said, well, mix it up and then put the chocolate chips in. Some parts might have more sugar than others unless you've really thoroughly mixed it. When you put it in the oven, some parts of the oven are going to be hotter than others. And so you notice that when you cook a cake, like the outside tends to cook before the inside, right? Because it's exposed to the heat.
And that's not even regarding the fact that we cannot control it on the atomic or molecular level at all.
Yep.
So, like, even if you were to say, like, you know, nearly have it completely the same, there would still be parts of it that maybe
Atomic
slightly
differences.
bigger. Yeah.
Very good, Harry.
Even on a large scale, chocolate chip cookie, well, it's melting chocolate, it's a liquid, it will go where it wants.
Sure. Yeah, it's going to go
It'll go
where
the
gravity
same.
takes it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's going to take the easiest part. Really good. So let's see what I came up. I was thinking of doing it at home. You know, you're trying to do this at home without a robot to do it for you. So I thought you could weigh the cookie dough. All right, because if you weigh it, then you've sort of got the same. You can assume you've got the same density, right? You can mix very thoroughly, so all of the matter is equally dispersed. You can use the same size spoon, so not only have you got the same weight, but you've got the same sort of volume as well, weight and volume together. And then I like this one. So who said this one? Harry. Using a mold, okay? Using a mold. So if we use like a gingerbread mold, that would help us to obtain the same shape. So here I've got 3 cookies that I made, 3 gingerbread men. You can see they're pretty happy. And I did some wicked Photoshop, if you can see it, because they're not all exactly the same. There's slight differences there. So spot the difference. The one on the left, Jake, what's different about the one on the left? Can you see it? Or the one in the middle? Can you see any differences between them? Who can see a difference? Maybe my Photoshop's not so good. Okay.
Excellent.
Bradley?
On the left one, his right hand is missing the
Yeah, poor guy. He's got his right hand chopped off. All right. Okay. What about the middle one?
Missing an ear.
He's missing an ear. He's gone deaf. He's a bit like me in that regard. And the last one,
His legs. on the right
he's
side.
had his leg chopped off. Okay. So all of these cookies, I followed all those things. I weighed it out. I mixed it thoroughly. I put the gumdrop buttons in the same location. They didn't turn out exactly the same. What is it that we can obviously tell that they do have is the same? They are, how about this as a question? They are all representations of what? A gingerbread man, yep. And where does it get its shape from? The mold, okay? They're all a shadow. They're all an indication of the mold. All right, so for Plato, everything we see is a shadow of its true form, its true mold. So let's look at a series of things here. Okay, there's going to be a quiz at the end of this. All right, so I've got about 6 or 7 slides here. We'll just look at in silence. Okay, have wait in high expectation. Okay, what are all of these things?
Table.
They're all tables. Well done. We all recognise them as tables, but they are all different. Okay? Some of them are rectangular, some of them are circular, some of them have 4 legs, some of them have 2 legs. A couple of them had no legs. All right, one of them was levitating. One of them's got, 1 leg, it's circular. Some of them have a smooth surface, it's see-through. They're all different, but they're all tables. How? Like, what makes them all the same? Yeah.
Well, it's a surface where it's levitated from the ground.
It's an elevated surface from the ground. Yep. So that will make a table. Right. Let someone object. Let's see an objection
It's
to that.
about the purpose that it serves to a person.
Function. Okay, very good. Functions, I think, are a bit easier to pick on. Let's offer some ideas and then we'll try to pick on them. I think so. Does anyone have something to say about it's a surface that you can that it serves a purpose? You put stuff on it, you eat from it, or something like that. What could be a way to combat that?
Let's just say, for example, with the wardrobe over there, I had a very, very high chair, right? And I was to use that and eat on top of it, drink on top of it, do my work on top of it. Would that become a table?
Yeah, good question. Yeah. Or like we make a distinction between a table and a kitchen bench, so you don't need to go to the absurdity. Like there's a distinction there, Mena?
There's space for there's space.
There's space on it, yep. The other one with function I like to go is, what if I'm playing with my little Lego pieces and I've got a Lego table? It's not like I'm going to sit down and chop up my steak on it, is it? So, Harry, you got another one?
What would make the difference between a table and a desk?
Yep, so that's a good question. Yep, so like is a desk a subset of table? Probably. There's all kinds of tables, and within all kinds of tables there's a subset of desks. There's kitchen tables, there's dining tables, there's coffee tables. There's lots of different types of tables, right? That's why I was a bit nondescript. I just wanted to say they're all a table of some variety. So, here we've got a coffee table, trestle table, desk, probably a kitchen table. That could be a seat, I don't know. So they're all tables. Anyway, so Aristotle says what they all share is they all have tableness. Yeah, they all have the essence of tableness. And that you look at these things and you recognize them as tables because you're a rational being. Okay? And what you can do is you can take this table right here. Now, picture it in your mind, close your eyes, and pretend that it's red. You can do that because you're a rational being. You can abstract the essence of table. And you can imagine this table with its legs pointed inwards and with a vase of flowers on top. And so you can abstract that essence and you can manipulate it in your mind. So the reason you recognize all of these things as tables is because they share something. They share something. They're shadows of that indicate the
true, there's the one true table.
The one true table. The genuine form of a table. That's what Plato's telling us about tables. Okay.
So with
Aristotle's going to say something a bit different.
Yeah, so Plato, for every single thing there is a true form of it that we grasp as the fundamental concept of it, and that's why we realise these other things as the shadows of that true concept.
Yes, almost. He says we grasp the shadows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that we're not capable of seeing the true form. Yeah. Almost, yeah. Okay, so this is tied up with the composites battle for this reason. Because what we've been talking about here is essence. That's the third term we're learning today. So we've had act, potency, now we're talking about essence. Essence is the tableness, right? So let's look at these words we've got together. We've got essentialism from essence, universalism, that'll be one for the Year 12s. That's equated with ontological realism. It says essences exist, composites exist. All right? Every individual table exhibits the essence of tableness. We can use our faculties of reason to discover what is it that makes something a table, to discover all other kinds of essences as well. And these categories, we don't create them. They exist independent of mind. They existed before you came along, before anyone came along, and they'll exist after we're gone and after you're gone. Nominalism is the name of the antithesis. It says essences are not real. Composites do not exist. Only simples exist. These categories are man-made. Table is just a word we use. You're socially conditioned to believe that they're real things. All right, so you can start to see the two camps. All right, and then we've sort of painted a picture of that in the past as well. Essences exist, the categories are real, the composites are real. Nominalism, no, they don't. Things are just symbols. Categories are man-made. We create them. Okay, so just without having looked at any of the arguments, where do people sort of feel that they belong here? Does anyone want to volunteer which side they're leaning more towards? Vinny?
I'd say the ontological realism, but
Yep.
I don't agree that categories exist independently of the mind.
Yep.
Because, say, all of humanity was wiped out, and then there was just a few tables and some aliens came, they wouldn't necessarily categorize them. They might change the category differently to how we saw it.
Right, yep.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point. Is like, if there are other rational beings and they come in here, do they see this as 2 tables and 4 chairs, or do they see it as one entity? Yeah, so like that whole idea of composites, that's a good point. All right. Harry, where do you feel like you're sitting?
But even if these rational beings still came down and they saw a table by itself, and they gave it their own word, or they started viewing, oh, okay, so that's whatever they would call that table.
Yep.
Then they might see different forms.
Yep.
Even though it looks differently, they might be rational enough to realise that that also functions or looks like the table that they just named.
Sure. Yep. So they recognise the similarities amongst all tables and bring that together to form the essence in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. Yep. Anyone else? All right. So they're the two sort of camps. All right. Let's proceed. So here's what Platonic, that's where we get that word from, Platonic of Plato, Plato's idea of essence. Plato says the realm of forms, okay, that perfect realm, is more real than the shadows. All we see is shadows. I'm a shadow, you're a shadow of the true perfect human being. The tables are a shadow of that ultimate table, right? They're all indications. And the realm of forms is more real than the world we see in the cave. Aristotle, on the other hand, says, Plato, you're being ridiculous. You can't just invent this realm of forms that we can't see or imagine, okay? Aristotle says the essence, the mold, okay, the form that it takes, exists, but only insofar, only as contained in each thing that instantiates it. So, he's saying, for the cookies over here, the gingerbread men, all right, that they indicate the mold to us, all right? For Aristotle, the mold doesn't exist. I've only used it here as an example. Obviously, the mold is existing right there, but for Aristotle, he's saying the gingerbread men indicate to us the mold, and they instantiate the mold, but the mold, that realm of forms, doesn't exist. Here's a better example. All of these shapes are triangles, okay? You're looking at them and you're recognizing all of them are triangles. Here we've got the truss of a building. Here we've got the billiards bowl. Here we've just got different triangles drawn, okay? And so there's not some perfect triangle in this realm of forms. Aristotle's saying triangles exist in these things. That's where you see them. That's where you observe them. That's where you understand them. All right? So that's the difference between them. So this is how Aristotle defines the essence, okay? He says it's the genus plus the specific difference. And so I really like to do the categories like this. It's a great way, well, it's just to think logically about things. So the first one we've got there is animals, all right? And one of the opening questions was, what's the difference between humans and animals? Oh, that's what, you guys were doing with definitions yesterday. We're going to have a good lesson on that. Animals. What's your favourite animal, Nikolai?
Tiger.
Tiger. Nice. Good call. Tigers are a type of animals. All right. How about you, Jake?
Koala.
Koala. And Chelsea?
Dog.
Dogs. Nice. All right. And then, assumedly, within this circle of animals, we have humans, right? Humans are a type of animal. You can look at it from a sort of evolutionary perspective, that we've sort of arisen out of the animal kingdom. Or you can just recognize that we are a being that takes in nutrients, that moves from one place to another, that passes on, has offspring, gives life, and so forth. So we have animals, and within this circle of animals, we have all of these different types of animals. All right, humans being one of the types of animals. Humans don't belong in that circle with tigers because humans are not tigers; they're not dogs. All right, but they do have a specific difference. Okay, and that is that humans are rational. Okay, so I'm going to make a fairly contentious claim here and say that other animals don't possess rationality. Okay, this is going to be an argument that we have here, but for Aristotle, he says, here's all animals. What separates humans from animals is rational faculties. The ability not only to perform mathematics and advanced calculus and so forth, but to abstract an essence. He says animals don't understand essences. How do we know that? Why would he suppose that? Here's one simple principle. You got an idea?
Well, because like if anything happens, like humans already like when they evolve, like you could speak, you know how to act around people, you know, like you could already think of it, you could process it in a way.
Yep.
But I don't think like animals could in a way.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. So I think I know exactly what you're saying, and I think that's the answer. Is that animals don't act as if they're rational. So here's a really simple principle, okay, is how do we know if something has a certain capacity? Well, does it act like it has that capacity? All right. How do you know trees can't talk? Well, have you ever seen a tree talk? Okay. So that's how we can infer these things. We judge the characteristics of something by what it does, by how it is. That's one of Aristotle's principles. That's how he arrives at that. So, what is a human being? Well, firstly, its genus is that it's an animal, and its specific difference is that it's rational. What is a triangle? Well, it's a two-dimensional Euclidean shape. All right, so you can think of the set of two-dimensional shapes in there. There's squares, there's rectangles, all right? And the specific difference for a triangle is that it has three straight sides. That's what separates it from all other shapes. So that's how he defines essence. Okay, we're going to look at 4 arguments that suppose essence exists. We'll go through them quickly. The first one is data. Okay, it says every single person on planet Earth acts as if essences exist. Therefore, we've got good reason to believe they're true. All right. Even you think of this idea of socially constructed categories. Here's an argument as to why they're not. Cultures pop up all around the map, all around the globe. Okay, so like when you look at the world map, I'm going to do a very rough sketch of it. Here's Africa. It's connected to Europe. Here's Russia. And what did Russia used to be connected to over here? America. Okay, so the general theory is that human beings sort of developed here about 200,000 years ago. Okay, that's what we call anatomically similar human beings. This is the scientific theory, and that's when they sort of came out of the trees and they started walking across, and spreading out because it was warming. Places were getting warmer, so they could live there. Prior to that, it was all frosted over. It was all cold in Europe. Now, 200,000 years ago, when I say anatomically similar, that means you could go back and you could mate with one of those people and have a child. That's what that means. Okay, you're both the same species. So, out of Africa theory, and although it was cool, things were warming up. Okay, so it was warmer here. There was still an ice bridge from Russia to the States. So that's how people did get across to America. All right, and the same with Australia. Okay, sort of Indonesia, Papua New Guinea. There were less islands. It was more one sort of big landmass that was connected. So that's a very rough overview of it. Things happening in different periods. But 200,000 years ago, they reckon Australians, the native indigenous people, somewhere between 100,000 and 50,000 years ago is when they arrived. With America there, it's a little bit different. They sort of arrived about 10,000 years ago. So they haven't been there for as long. But anyway, we've got cultures popping up everywhere. We've got culture here, we've got a culture here, we've got a culture here. Groups of people sort of spreading out, living together, and developing their own beliefs, right? Okay, they're developing their own beliefs. Yet, every single group that develops their own belief believes in trees. And none of them believe in frogs. All right? They treat trees as individual units of being. Why? Well, the argument from data says, Well, because they exist. You're being silly if you think they don't. All right, so that's just an argument from personal experience, from the way that everyone views the world. Everyone views the world this way, therefore it's the case. All right, that's the argument it's making. The second one is about existence being prior to human language. So this is again the argument from dinosaurs. We've spoken about this. Dinosaurs living 240 million to 70 million years ago, so even way before mammals. All right, and did they exist as individual entities of unity? Did they exist as a single being, or is that a category we make up? So the argument here says, well, they existed as a single category before we came along. So my numbering's wrong here. This is our third argument. Unity of kinds. Who wants to read that for me? Harry, can you read that for me?
Yeah, the unity and order of things would be mystifying if essence were not
Pervasive.
pervasive feature of mind, independent reality.
Very good. So that's a complex sentence there, right? So let's break it down. Unity and order of things. All of these trees are united to one another, even though they're not the same tree. None of them are identical. They're all very different, all right? They've got branches going in different directions. They've got different coloured leaves. They're all the same species of tree. They're in different locations. They've got different root systems. But they are all united to one another. They're all the same tree in the way they're not united to me, or to you, or to the table, or to a piece of seaweed at the beach, all right? They are united. They have some form that unites them. They have some essence, okay? What do they share? What's in common with them? The essence. Same with these dogs. These are all different breeds of dogs, all right? But they have the same essence that unites them. So this argument is saying, because things are united and we can recognize them as trees or as dogs or as human beings or as tables, it would be ridiculous to assume that essence isn't a real feature of reality. Okay? So what do these words mean? It would be mystifying. It'd be so confusing if essence were not a pervasive. That means everywhere, occurring everywhere. It's just so prevalent. Feature of mind independent. Okay, so regardless of what your thoughts are about it, reality. Okay, so even at the atomic level, right, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, all water molecules, if they exist, are united to one another in a way that table salt isn't, sodium chloride isn't. Okay, that there is an essence of a water molecule and there is an essence of a table salt molecule, and they're not the same thing, because these ones are united in a way they're not united to the third one. So that was the argument of unity of kinds. And then the last one is the unity of individual things. So this one just says, this is a bit of a combat to the ship of Theseus. We're going to talk, I've got a good solution to the ship of Theseus soon. But here we have a table, right? And the table's going to change over time. Let's say, put a big scratch on the surface, scratched in Dan was here, 2023, and then accidentally snapped the leg off, so I had to replace the leg. The table has undergone changes, all right? But it is maintained some sense of unity. Similarly, the tree, it's growing, it's shedding its bark, it's changing its leaves every season, it's a deciduous tree. It has undergone changes, but it has maintained the sense of being one united being. You have grown, every atom in your body changes every 7 years, so if you're 14, 15, 16, at least twice, all right, you've shedded all of the atoms and taken on new ones, yet you've maintained some identity through that. So the last argument says, because things are united to themselves, they have an essence that maintains it, an essence or a form that maintains their unity. So that's it. So very, very, very quick recap. We said, we started with act and potency. All right. We started with Plato's understanding of the cave. All right. We're living in the realm of shadows. Everything is an indication of the true world. Then we had act and potency, actuality, the way things are, potentiality, the way things can be. All right. Then we talked about essences. Okay. We can use a mold. Plato says, everything we see is a shadow of the true form, the genuine form. Aristotle says everything we see contains the essence. That's how we understand the essence, because it's in the objects that we see. And so, what is the definition of essence? And then arguments for. Well, it's obvious we can see them. Categories existed prior to us understanding them or naming them. Things are united to one another. All right, water molecules, tables are united, people are united to one another, and then things maintain their own individual existence throughout time, despite parts changing. So they're the 4 arguments in favour of essence. So I just want to show you one very quick painting. It was on one of our slides the other day. Maybe I'll just Google search it. School of Athens, this painting. All right, so it's a very famous painting, and it's Plato and Aristotle. Here in the middle there. I'm trying to zoom in. Okay, so the 2 guys. Oh, hang on, you can't see it. Sorry. Let me just go duplicate. All right, so the 2 guys. I'll zoom out so you can see. Here's the whole painting, right? Here's the whole painting, and it's a massive painting. It's like 7 meters by 3 meters or something. It's humongous. Okay, and this is the School of Athens. It's where the philosophers are and they're debating. It's painted about 500 years ago, 400 years ago. Look at these 2 people. Okay, who wants? One of them's Plato, one's Aristotle. Who wants to have a guess who's who? All right, Bradley, you go first.
Is Plato the older one?
Excellent. Yep. How did you guess that?
Because of what you said before.
That he's older, yeah. That he was the teacher. Perfect. So that's deductive reasoning, you're right? Mr. Roy said he's older, that guy's older, that guy's Plato. Okay, very good. Is there another tell?
I just recognise Plato's big beard.
Plato's beard, yeah. Yeah, we don't have any photos of him for some reason, I don't know. But yep, beard. There's one other tell from what I've been telling you guys today.
Is it the pointing?
The pointing, yeah, what can we see?
Plato's pointing.
Pointing up, what's he saying? Realm of forms. What's Aristotle pointing at? Earth. Here it is. Essences are here. All right. So it's a beautiful painting, but it's also beautiful because it's conveying their philosophy. Plato up here, the realm of forms. Aristotle, no, things are here on Earth. This is where we see our essences. Okay. So that's really all we're going to go through today. I've got 3 questions for our journal, and I'll put them up on the board here so you can pull them out.
I have a question.
Yeah, please. Does anyone have questions? Yeah.
Plato's understanding is that everything is a mold, it's made up of mold, and it's basically we see shadows.
Yes.
How would he describe a mold of a human being? Like the shadow of it? Like I don't understand.
Yeah. That all of us are shadows of the ultimate human being.
Wait a second, that relates to how God and we are created in a sense, doesn't
In
it?
God's image? Yeah, it could do. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that before. Yeah, that's
Because, you know,
interesting.
we're all technically the imperfect molds of God, who is the, you know, perfect sort of mold for us.
Yeah, it
because
could
we're
be.
made in his image, so
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
Yeah. All right. Yep. Other comments?
So Plato said like perfect form. Like where does that exist? The perfect form. Did he ever?
In the realm of forms. Yeah.
So that's
Intangible. It's like the idea of heaven, I suppose. You can't
it's
see
not
it.
physical.
Yeah, it's not a physical place.
Okay.
Yeah. That the physical things we encounter are shadows, you know, so they're sort of one-dimensional, you know. You can, like when you look at the shadow of something, you know, like maybe you guys can sort of see the shadow of the chair, it indicates the chair's existence, but look how much more real this physical 3-dimensional object is than this 2-dimensional representation of it. And this doesn't even have any colour to it, there's no substance, it's just, and so Plato's saying, how far removed are we from reality if the shadows, if everything we encounter, if this is a shadow, what on earth is that realm of forms like? You know, yeah, it's mind-boggling to think. Yeah, cool. All right, so I'm going to put these questions up on the board, and we'll just have a go at answering them in the journal, and then we'll catch up and do some logic, and I've got something to give you guys as well. Bradley? Yeah.
Can I go to the toilet?
Yeah.